And the pitch is hit in the air to left and deep. Hey, get up! Get out of here! Gone!
Well, it's been a long time, but the Brewers are back. We got the crew from Milwaukee, and we're on the attack.
From the greatest city in the world, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hello, everybody. It's me, Mr. Brewtown. You are listening to the big show we call the Brewtownsports. Look for us on Twitter and Google+, Brewtownsports. Facebook, it's called Mr. Brewtown. You can also listen to the show at Stitcher.com, TuneIn.com, and iTunes.com. Don't forget about TPSRadio.net, BaseballTalkRadio.com, and BrewtownRadio.weebly.com. You can also catch the program on Spreaker and on Podomatic. Just punch in Brewtown Sports in that search engine. If you want to send us some emails, just do it at mrbrewtown78@gmail.com. You know, Monday night I was on the big and the great Phil Nason show, and I've come to realize that every week when I'm on the Phil Nason show, anytime we talk about an individual Milwaukee Brewer or a group of Milwaukee Brewers, they seem to bust out of a slump. And Jonathan LaCroix did it yesterday. That was cool. I mean, that was just absolutely cool. You could see the whole city of Milwaukee just kind of going, yes! And today, Mark Reynolds popped out 2 home runs. You know, this is a guy, Mark Reynolds, he's a streaky hitter. And he has been in a slump, but today, 2 home runs, 3 hits, 4 at-bats, drove in 3. He's now batting .207 on the season. .207 on the season. It'll go back up to around .230, .235, because once he starts hitting, he'll go on a nice week or two where he's hitting everything. Jonathan LaCroix, who was in a little bit of a slump. We talked about him on the Phil Nason show over the last week, 2 weeks, and now he's red hot. He's now batting .312 on the season. We talked about Ryan Braun a couple of weeks ago. Ryan Braun was in a little mini slump. Now he seems to be back. He's getting good hits. He's batting .303 on the season. So I think as we go on, and it looks like I'll be on the Phil Nason show just about every week, I'm going to start talking about a lot about the pitching. Maybe we can get Giovanni Gardo and Matt Garza and some of the other guys to start getting out of that pitching slump. So look for it on the Phil Nason show. Just go to brewtownradio.weebly.com. We got a link up there. Phil shows up there. Just go ahead and listen to it. It's about 15 minutes in, and then go back and look at the numbers, and you'll see what I'm saying, that when I talk about any Milwaukee Brewer on the Phil Nason show, the guy comes out of a slump. So there you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Phil not to mention any Milwaukee Brewer that's on a hot streak, because then that person will go into a slump, because it always works in reverse. Big victory by the Milwaukee Brewers today. Final score 5-1. The Brewers ramped out 12 hits. And as we said, Mark Reynolds with a huge game for the Milwaukee Brewers. 2 home runs, a couple of RBIs, 3 RBIs on the game. And Mark Reynolds had been in a slump. Carlos Gomez ramped out 2 hits. He was 2 of 4, scored a run. Jonathan LaCroix was 2 for 4. Ryan Braun 1 for 4. Ramos Ramirez grabbed a hit today, 4 at-bats. Ricky Weeks was 1 of 4 and scored a run. So he's now batting .259 on the season, and that's the guy that if there's any dealing to be made by the Milwaukee Brewers, that's one of the guys that you're going to have to give up. And I think the Brewers would do it. Chris Davis did not grab a hit today. Mark Reynolds, as we said, big game, 2 home runs. All right, 2 home runs. Gene Segura was 1 for 4. He's now batting .235 on the season. Kyle Loesch got the victory, pitched really well today. He's now 11-4 on the season, went 6 and 2/3 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, walked 2, struck out 3. ERA on the season is now 3.07. Zach Duke got to hold his 10th of the season, pitched a third of an inning, didn't give up anything, and Will Smith also came into the game and got to hold. He pitched 1 inning, 1 hit. His ERA is now 3.09. Now, he has been struggling over his last 11 appearances. Higher ERA than what we would want Will Smith. It looks like he's settled down. He got his 22nd hold today. And Jeremy Jeffress who's back with the Milwaukee Brewers. He did pitch one inning, and didn't give anything up. He didn't get the save, but it was not a save situation. But he pitched well for the Milwaukee Brewers, and hopefully he'll have some success. The Brewers will be able to look to him to take some of the pressure off of Zach Duke and Will Smith and K-Rod, who seem to be the three guys that they have relied on most of the season out of the bullpen. So, as we said, Mark Reynolds' big game today, 2 home runs. I really think that was his best game of the season for the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, everybody's kind of talking about what will the Brewers do. I mean, we got the trade deadline coming up. They got to make a trade. Well, Ron Reineke doesn't really think so, and he's mentioned this in the past, and I know Doug Melvin has kind of talked about it too, that they kind of like the makeup of the Milwaukee Brewers, and on Tuesday, with fewer than 10 days remaining before the trade deadline, Ron Reineke expressed confidence in his club as it's currently constructed. Asked how much he and general manager Doug Melvin have been discussing the team's trade options, Reineke said, "I'm not talking much. We talked on Monday a little bit. He's the one that handles all this. He runs staff by me, and Reineke said he has enough to handle there. And what we're trying to do, I'm really concerned with what we're doing and not doing. Can we get some help or whatever it is we are going to do to get if we get some help. I like what we have, and we'll try to do the best with what we have." Now, if that's an indication that Ron Reineke's under the influence that Doug Melvin is not going to make a deal, we'll have to wait and see. I like to think that the Brewers are at least shopping around. They're at least checking out. They're at least looking at what's out there and what other teams would be willing to take from the Milwaukee Brewers. Because to construct a trade, as we all know, and I hope we all know this, if you want to receive something, you got to give something up, and it depends on what other teams would want from the Milwaukee Brewers. So Ron Reineke kind of says, "Hey, I like the team the way it is. I don't know if we're going to make any trades." And you know, I'd like to think that Doug Melvin at least talks to Ron Reineke and would say, "Hey, I got a shot at going after this guy or that guy, and I think it could help the club, but we got to give up this. How would you feel about that?" So we'll see how all that works out as we get closer to the trade deadline. Jonathan LaCroix, who had a great walk-off home run yesterday and kind of set the tone for today's game against the Cincinnati Reds. On the same day, he was honored for his heart and hustle. Catcher Jonathan LaCroix insisted that he has plenty of energy in reserve to play through the dog days of the summer, and he went out and showed it. LaCroix was announced on Tuesday as the Brewers winner of the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association Heart and Hustle Award, snapped out of a recent funk with a pair of solo home runs, including a blast that is in the ninth inning that gave the Brewers a 4-3 walk-off win over the Cincinnati Reds at Miller Park yesterday. And there has been some talk in the national media and mainly with Cardinal media that Jonathan LaCroix was all wore out and his big number days were done for the rest of the season. What the hell do Cardinals media know about anything going on with the Milwaukee Brewers? Jonathan LaCroix is going to have a MVP type season. It was LaCroix's second career walk-off home run, both against the Cincinnati Reds, by the way. This one was against Sam LeCure. The first one came last August off of Chapman. So Jonathan LaCroix getting some awards and going out there earning them. So there you go. Also, I want to mention this too. A lot of the people across the country that may not necessarily be big-time Milwaukee Brewer fans, but listen to the show anyways. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to the big show. The announced attendance for today is a Wednesday, was over 38,000 people at Miller Park in the smallest market in Major League Baseball. So there you go. That's part of the magic of the Milwaukee Brewers over the last couple of years. We've been able to put 2.8, 2.9, 3 million people in the seats, and we can put 38,000 people in the seats on a Wednesday afternoon. I don't know too many other places that can do that. So there you go. The rest of the country, that's part of the Brewer magic that is going on this season and has been going on for about the last 5-6 seasons, and it's also a reason why I keep telling people this is the greatest city in the world. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the standings as we stand today in Major League Baseball, and we'll try to figure out who's going to be the next commissioner. Is it going to be Mr. Brewtown? I don't think so.
Brewtownsports.podomatic.com.
Well, a baseball friend is the best friend that a friend can have. A baseball friend is the true meaning of BFF.
People from all over the world take time out of their busy schedule to listen to the big show. And as always, we say thank you to all the listeners in Wisconsin, California, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Oregon, Arizona, Maryland, Minnesota, Virginia, Rhode Island, Kansas, Massachusetts, Tennessee, Ohio, Indiana, Delaware, South Dakota, Alaska, New Mexico, Michigan, and in Utah. Overseas, in Russia, the United Kingdom, China, Germany, France, our great friends to the north, Canada, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Costa Rica, Australia, Sweden, India, Israel, Romania, Vietnam, and in Greece. And as always, we say thank you for listening to the big show.
What's up, Milwaukee? Let's hear it for your Brewers. Made it to the playoffs. Let me hear you real loud. Go Brewers. Go Brewers. Go Brewers. Go Brewers. Again, go Brewers. Go Brewers. Go Brewers. Go Brewers. Go Brewers. Go Brewers. Go Brewers.
Hey, don't forget you can follow the show on Twitter and Google Plus Brewtown Sports. Facebook, it's called Mr. Brewtown. You can find the program at Stitcher.com, TuneIn.com, and iTunes.com. Also, TPSRadio.net, BaseballTalkRadio.com, and BrewtownRadio.weebly.com. You can also find the program at Spreaker.com, Brewtown Sports, and BrewtownSports.podomatic.com. Hey, let's take a look, that is, easy for me to say, at the standings in Major League Baseball as we stand today. In the National League East, the Washington Nationals have a 2-game lead on the Atlanta Braves. The Nationals are 55-43. Atlanta is 54-46. Now, the Nationals have won 4 games in a row. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. The Braves have lost 2 games in a row, and they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. Now, playoff, the percentage of a chance that the Nationals are going to be the team that wins the National League East and goes to the playoffs is 86.3. The Atlanta Braves are 52.4. Now, Miami, who's 47-52 and 8.5 games back, they've won 3 games in a row. They're 4-6 in their last 10 games. They've only got a playoff a chance of 4.5. Now the New York Mets at 47-53, they're 6-4 in their last 10 games. They have an 11.3% chance. So Gary Mack of MetsMusings.com, who I'm going to be on his big program tomorrow night, you still have an 11.3% chance of making the playoffs. So there you go. The Mets, the people at Yahoo or ESPN that put this together, they kind of look at the Mets and say, hey, we think they got an 11% chance. The Philadelphia Phillies, they have no chance. They basically have a 0% chance of making the playoffs. They're 43-57, 13 games back. They've lost 3 games in a row, and they're 4-6 in their last 10 games. Out west, it's the San Francisco Giants with a 1-game lead over the Los Angeles Dodgers of Los Angeles, California. The Giants are 56-44. They've won 2 games in a row, 7-3. In their last 10 games. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 56-46, are 1 game back. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. The Giants have a 78.5% chance of making the playoffs if they continue to play the way that they're playing right now. And the Dodgers have a 74% chance of making the playoffs if they continue to play the way that they're playing today. Arizona, San Diego, and Colorado, they basically, ESPN, say they have no chance. 0.1 chance of making the playoffs. Arizona's 12.5 games back. They're tied with San Diego. Colorado 16 games back at 40 and 60. Colorado has lost 7 games in a row, and they are 3-7 on the season. Let's take a look at the American League before we look at the National League Central. In American League East, the Baltimore Orioles are 4 games up on the New York Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, or the Orioles, are 55-44. The Yankees are 51-48, and Toronto is 52-49. Now, the Orioles and the Yankees are both 6-4 in their last 10 games, and the Toronto Blue Jays are 5-5 in their last 10 games. Tampa Bay is 48-43. They've won 6 games in a row, and they're 7-3. They are the hottest team in Major League Baseball right now over the last 10 games. Boston is 47-53, 8.5 games back, but they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. Now, Baltimore, according to ESPN, has a 61% chance of making the playoffs. The Yankees, 18. The Toronto Blue Jays have kicked themselves up to a 30% chance of making the playoffs. Tampa Bay has a 9.2% chance of making the playoffs. And Boston has a 5.5% chance of making the playoffs if they play the way that they're playing right now. Detroit, in the Central, has a 6-game lead on the Cleveland Indians. Detroit is 55-42. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. Cleveland is 51-50. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games. Kansas City at 49-50, 7 games back. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games. Chicago 48-53. They're 9 games back. And Minnesota's 46-54. They're 10.5 games back. Now the chance of playoffs, according to ESPN, in the American League Central, Detroit has a 79.1% chance. Cleveland has a 27% chance. Kansas City has a 13% chance. Chicago has a 4% chance. And Minnesota has a 2.5% chance of making the playoffs. And if Minnesota makes the playoffs, that would be one of the biggest turnarounds ever. Seriously, ever in Major League Baseball. Out west, the Oakland A's have a 2-game lead on the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, California. The Oakland A's are 61-38. The Angels are 59-40, 8.5 games back is Seattle at 53-47, Houston at 42-58, 19.5 games back, and Texas have just completely fallen apart without Prince Fielder. They're 40-60, 21.5 games back. Now, Oakland has a 99.3% chance of making the playoffs. That's about as good as you're going to get. And the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, California, have a 92.3% chance. And Seattle's still in it. They have a 56, that is, 0.4% chance of making the playoff. Now, the division that everybody's talking about in Major League Baseball, the National League Central, the Milwaukee Brewers have a 2-game lead right now. St. Louis plays tonight over the St. Louis Cardinals. Milwaukee is 57-45. St. Louis is 54-46. The Pittsburgh Pirates are now 3 games back. They're 53-47. Cincinnati, they've lost 6 games in a row. 2 to the Milwaukee Brewers. They're 51-50, 5.5 games back. And the Chicago Cubs are 14 games back. They're 41-57. Now, the chance of making the playoffs, this division is really the only division in Major League Baseball where you have 4 teams all slugging it out. Milwaukee has a 59.1% chance. St. Louis a 54.3% chance. Pittsburgh at 42.6%. Cincinnati still has a 34.2% chance of making the playoffs, and the Chicago Cubs have a 0% chance of making the playoffs. So there you go. That's the standings as we stand today in Major League Baseball. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a person who just about everybody wants to have them become the next commissioner of baseball, but it looks like he doesn't want to take the job. We'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to the big show. We call it Brewtown Sports.
Don't forget about the friends of the show, MetsMusings.com, FightinPhillies.com, BaseballTalkRadio.com, BaseballPhD.net, FantasyBaseballWeekly.wordpress.com, PhilipNasons.wordpress.com, Marlins Country Radio at Spreaker.com, TalkToContact.Podomatic.com, PainInsider.com, Talking Golf with Gary, that's
TGWG.com, SportsWiseGuys.com, MilwaukeeSportsGeeks.com, MLBThisWeek.com. And don't forget, you can listen to the big show, Brewtown Sports, on Podomatic, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, and BaseballTalkRadio.com, and my site, BrewtownRadio.weebly.com.
Hey, welcome back to the big show. We call it Brewtown Sports. Look for us on Twitter, Google Plus at Brewtown Sports. Facebook, it's called Mr. Brewtown. If you want to send us some emails, do it at MrBrewtown78 at gmail.com. I've been going on to Phil Nason's program quite a bit here lately. It seems like every Monday night Phil wants me to come on the show, talk a little Milwaukee Brewer baseball, and I love to do it. It's a great program. If you haven't listened to it yet, go to philnasons.wordpress.com, and the big program is on there. Otherwise, just go to brewtownradio.weebly.com. We've put a link up to the program right there. It's called the Phil Nason Show. We go on that program. I like to talk baseball. I'm always amazed that his listeners have questions for Mr. Brewtown. So I love talking baseball. I love answering questions. And some of those guys are actually pretty smart. I mean, seriously, pretty smart. They come up with some great questions. So I'm challenging my listeners. To send me questions, and you can do it at MrBrewtown78 at gmail.com. And just put a show question. And I'll answer the question. I don't care what it is. I'll answer that question. That's what I'm all about. Let's talk a little bit about Major League Baseball. At the end of the year, Bud Selig is finally stepping away after 16 years as the commissioner of Major League Baseball. He's been a great commissioner. Overall, he's been a great commissioner. I didn't care too much of him as the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. He did some good things for the Brewers, but overall the Brewers were in pretty sad shape by the time he got done as their principal owner, and his daughter got done, and they forced the Seligs to sell that team to Mark Ananasio. Like I said, he's done a great job, but it's now time to start looking for the new commissioner, and one name keeps popping up with everybody, and his name is Steve Greenberg. Now, if the last name sounds familiar, he is the son of Hall of Famer Hank Greenberg. And everybody wants him to step in and take that. Now, he played professional baseball for 5 seasons. He's a lawyer. He was an agent. He was deputy commissioner under Fay Vincent back in the early 1990s. He started 2 networks, Classic Sports Network, which later became ESPN Classic, and College Sports TV. And those went on to be sold for $500 million. He helped launch the MLB Network. He also helped broker the sale of franchises and even helped the Mets secure their $400 million deal for the naming rights to Citi Field. Now, with that kind of a resume, you would say this guy's perfect. Why hasn't been named as the next commissioner of Major League Baseball? And recently, Bud Selig asked Greenberg if he wanted to be commissioner, and he turned the job down, according to Bob Nightingale of USA Today. When other owners got together and asked him again 2 weeks ago, he again said no. The problem appears to be that Greenberg already has experience in the commissioner's office and knows how hard the job can be. According to Greenberg, in an interview in USA Today, he said early on, I told Bud I was not going to be a candidate. I know what's involved. It's a 24/7, 365-day schedule that the commissioner has to keep to do it right. The 3 years that I spent in the commissioner's office was exhausting. Selig and MLB search committee do have other candidates, and former Commissioner Vincent told USA Today that he believes that Rob Manfred, MLB's chief operating officer, will eventually get the job. Selig has one major decision left, and it could end up being more important than expanded playoffs, and that's steroid testing, the All-Star game, or instant replay. And he has 6 months to change Greenberg's mind. To the chagrin of many, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So maybe my name will reappear. If I'm selected, I will not run. I will not run. I don't want to be commissioner of baseball. I'd screw that thing up. You know, and as all fans, and I'm a big fan of Major League Baseball, we all sit there and we watch these games and we listen to them on the radio and we read all the results of every game and we just look at it and we say, you know, I would be a superb general manager. I would be a great manager. I would be the greatest commissioner ever. But you know we'd screw it up. We would just screw it up. Because when you look at it, you have to be more than just a baseball fan. You have to be a guy who knows the law. You got to be comfortable because it's all about contracts. It's all about contract. You would have to know what agents do. You'd have to be able to relate to agents. You would have to be able to relate to the players. And you would have to be able to put together these fine, big money broadcast deals. And I don't think any of us could really do that. Now, this Greenberg guy could do it. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want the job. I don't know what else. Maybe Mark Ananasio. Maybe Mark Ananasio would be the next commissioner. But then we would lose him as an owner. and that's not good. That would just not be good. And I know a lot of people have talked about Mark Ananasio as a guy who would be great at this job because he's done such a great job with the Milwaukee Brewers. But then we'd lose the Milwaukee Brewers. And in the back of my mind, there's not a lot back there anymore, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want Bud Selig or his family to somehow become involved again as owners of the Milwaukee Brewers. I just don't want that happening. I like Mark Ananasio as the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. This is a franchise, ladies and gentlemen, that you have to look at and say, I want my owners to be that way. I know a lot of people in New York, they complain about the ownership of the New York Mets. Other cities, you've got owners that are just not that good. They're just not doing the fans a service by the product that they're putting on the field. And Mark Ananasio has put a fantastic product on the field. The business end of the Milwaukee Brewers is one of the best in baseball. I mean, this is a guy that would do great things. And I would love to have him as the commissioner of baseball. But then we would lose him as the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm selfish. And I think every Milwaukee Brewer fan is selfish. I was very happy that Bud Selig became the commissioner because he did great things. But I was more happy that he was no longer the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. He had about a 5-year period that was more the general manager putting together that great team of 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, and 83. But Bud Selig overall did not do a good job of the Milwaukee Brewers. I was happy to get rid of him. And I thought, hey, if he doesn't do a good job as commissioner, they'll just get rid of him and bring in somebody else. So the guy that everybody wants, Greenberg, doesn't want the job. The guy that I think would do probably the best job, besides Greenberg, Mark Ananasio, I don't want him to have the job. So we'll see how all that works out. And there's got to be somebody out there. I mean, it's got to be Tommy Lasorda. What about Joe Torre? What do you think of Joe Torre? Can we put Joe Torre in? Can he do the job? I've seen this, and this is no joke, ladies and gentlemen. And I've seen this, and this angers me. If this were to happen, the name that I'm about to mention, if it were to happen, I would stop being a fan of Major League Baseball. Tony La Russa. I have seen people actually mention Tony La Russa would be the best choice as the next commissioner of Major League Baseball. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Tony La Russa. We'll see. And who would be the best candidate? What would you look for as the next baseball commissioner? Like I said, he'd have to have some sort of background in law, or at least an understanding. He'd have to have a big understanding about how all the broadcasting work, radio, television, what these deals mean. Are we actually getting a good value? Are we going to make money? Is this going to make every team money? And you got to keep the owners happy. I think that would be the hardest problem, is keeping all the owners happy, because you work for the owners, basically. I mean, you can't just do what you want. You still have to go through the owners. If the owners don't like what you're doing, they're going to get rid of you. They're not going to renew your contract. So, yeah, there's a lot of balls to be juggled, and evidently the guy that just about everybody that's involved in this process has said this is the guy we want. He doesn't want the job. So there you go. We'll see how all that works. Also, keep your eye on the waiver wire. Keep your eye on the trade wire, because now you're going to start seeing, and we've seen a couple of trades here already. You start looking and look for that little hashtag there that says Brewers, because I still think the Brewers are going to make it. It's not going to be a big whopper trade. It's not going to be a huge trade for a huge player, but I think the Brewers are going to make a couple of moves here. They're going to look to fill some spots and kind of solidify what they got going on. Ricky Weeks could be traded. I would think he'd be traded to the Oakland A's because his brother plays for the Oakland A's, so look for that. before the end of the month. That's pretty much our show for today. Hope you enjoyed it, because I sure enjoyed giving it to you. You are listening to The Big Show. You can find us on Twitter and Google+, Brewtown Sports. Facebook, it's called Mr. Brewtown. You can listen to the show at Stitcher.com, TuneIn.com, at iTunes.com. Also on BaseballTalkRadio.com, TPSRadio.net, and BrewtownRadio.weebly.com. Have a good day, everybody. Broadcasting from the greatest city in the world, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Mr. Brewtown has left the studios. Drive home safely. Beep, beep.